Hello, everyone, and welcome to Solving from Anywhere. I am Hanna, Managing Director for Community at MIT Solve. We are thrilled to host incredible speakers today on the topic of corporate innovation to solve world challenges. For those of you who may be new to Solve, welcome. Solve is an initiative of MIT, and our mission is to drive innovation to solve world challenges. So we find, fund, and support social entrepreneurs that we call solver teams, and we connect them with a community of members who can support them to scale their impact. And we very much hope you enjoy your introduction to the Solve community of entrepreneurs and social impact leaders today. To our members and our solver teams, welcome back. It is so lovely to see your familiar names and faces. And in fact, Solve is lucky to count many incredible foundations, corporations, nonprofits as members. Our community has grown to over 120 member organizations who achieve their social impact goals through partnerships with Solve and our solver teams. If you are a member, don't forget to register for virtual Solve Challenge Finals on September 29. This is our annual pitch event, and it's my favorite time of the year. It's when we from the finalists who apply to our 2020 global challenges. And we've received this year 2,600 solutions from 135 countries. I don't envy the judges who will have to make decisions. 75 of those, the finalists will be pitching. They're eligible for $2 million in prize funding. So the stakes are real. I can't wait to meet those and to have you meet them and meet the ones that will become our next Solver class. Solve Challenge Finals is open to the Solve community of members and solver teams. If you are interested in attending as a Solve member, we would love to have you there. All right, let's get on with the program. Here is what you can expect in the next hour. First, as a starter, I want to introduce you to one of our Indigenous Fellows, Oshete Shakowin Fellow Chance Renville, who's the project manager of Thunder Valley CDC, Assistant Wahpeton Owate. He is out of the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota and truly a unique entrepreneur. Then we will have a 30-minute conversation with Gwyneth Gaul of Comcast, NBCUniversal, and Shaloo, Garg of Microsoft about corporate philanthropy, working with startups, and adjusting to the times that we're in. And finally, we'll close the hour with an audience Q&A. So you can join the conversation. We want to hear from you. You can use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom window, input your questions there anytime. You can also upvote your favorite question that you see there. And you can post on Twitter your question as well. We'll be watching for that. Our hashtag is Solving from Anywhere. All right, let's get started. So thrilled to introduce Chance Renville, Project Manager, Thunder Valley CDC, Assistant Wahpeton Oyate. Thunder Valley is building energy-efficient, culturally relevant homes in Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. Chance was selected in 2018 as an Oshete Shakowin Solve Fellow. Thank you so much for joining us, Chance.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share our work and a bit about what we do at Thunder Valley.
So tell us about Thunder Valley and about the community that you serve.
Yeah, so Thunder Valley is a 501c nonprofit organization, grassroots, Lakota-led on the Pine Ridge Reservation, really working to address a lot of the systemic issues that we see as Indigenous people on the reservation. And I think across all Indian country, there's a huge housing shortage. So that's one of our focus areas is providing home ownership opportunities for our people here. Also, we have a youth leadership initiative working to provide opportunities for the youth. We have a high suicide rate on the reservation. And again, I find all of these things that we're facing are all across Indian country. So working to provide our young ones those opportunities to give them something to do, keep them out of trouble, and build their leadership skills through that program. We have a food sovereignty initiative. Pine Ridge is a food desert, so 95+% of the food that's on the reservation is trucked in. We do have a really large land base, so we're really trying to build some systems that we're able to provide the food on the reservation for our community that's fresh, local, and giving the community tools themselves to have a garden and that type of thing. So really working to address that issue of food and the food desert that we have here. We also have a workforce development program for young adults, 18 to 26. Give them the tools and skills, certifications, that type of thing through the program to go out into the workforce, find a job, and just preparing them for the workforce. Basically, the job market around here isn't very great. It's a very expansive reservation, so opportunities seem to be scarce. But we're really working to get our young adults ready for the workforce. Another initiative that we have is the Lakota Language Initiative, which is very special to me because I don't speak the language, but it's an opportunity for myself, my coworkers, the community, and anybody. Basically, we provide some platforms online for learning the language, and just thinking about myself, my family. My parents don't speak the language, and that's something that was taken away from them through colonization and assimilation and that type of thing. So for us to have that program to learn the language and get back to that is really special, and I think is something that we need as a people, and it really gets us back to our culture and our life ways and where I feel that we need to be as Indigenous people. More specifically, my role at Thunder Valley, working with regenerative community development, so working to get buildings built in a sustainable way. I think through doing that, we're able to honor Mother Earth and build sustainably, and building homes and buildings that are going to last a long time, because we don't want to build something that's going to be around for 15, 20 years and that's it. We want these homes to last for 50, 100 years, so these first-time home buyers can pass that wealth on to their children and really build that family wealth through that process.
Wow, thank you, Chance. I mean, the range of service is incredible. It's housing, food, skills, mental health, language and culture, just really trying to right so many wrongs over so many decades and centuries. So thank you for that overview and for what you do. I know that COVID-19 has also impacted your reservation quite differently as well, and life on the reservation. Tell us about how you and Thunder Valley are responding to the pandemic.
So COVID-19 has hit the reservation, certainly not as severe as in some other Indigenous communities, but we have, through the tribe, set up checkpoints and that type of thing for entering into the reservation, really trying to monitor the individuals who are coming in, tourists and that type of thing. I think we do have a really vulnerable population here on the reservation. There's definitely a lack of hospitals, healthcare, and that type of thing. So, if we do experience a big surge in cases, I could see it as being pretty catastrophic and detrimental to the reservation here, and especially thinking about our elders and our older generation who are the knowledge keepers and have the language and that type of thing. It's very scary, and I am worried about that. And here at Thunder Valley, what we're doing is we've partnered with the Seventh Generation Foundation just last week through a campaign to raise funds to fight COVID-19. So Seventh Generation was matching donations up to $50,000. So that's one avenue we're taking to help address the issue. Also, getting supplies to our site and being able to deliver food boxes, supplies, that type of thing to the outlying communities on the reservation, to elders, really focusing on the elders, getting them the supplies that they need, cleaning products, just really trying to help in that way, in any way that we can.
Thank you. It is interesting what this crisis is, or our management of the crisis is surfacing as our, values, and it's such a good reminder of the value that our elders bring to our communities and the role that they play there, knowing that they're the most vulnerable and that there are some just outlandish, ways that sometimes in some places our economic recovery is being advanced at the expense of their protection. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us, Chance. The work you're doing on reservation land and it is phenomenal. And I think the lessons really ought to be replicated across many communities. So I'm excited that we're going to get to learn more from you and hear more about your work in our Q&A section later today. For our audience, do not forget, you can start submitting your questions for Chance in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and stay tuned for his answers at the end of the session. Thank you, Chance.
Thank you.
All right, for our next segment, I'm really excited to introduce you to our speakers. Gwyneth Gaul is the Senior Director, Strategic Partnerships and Community Impact at Comcast NBCUniversal. With his team is focused on increasing opportunity for economic advancement through digital equity and on investing in communities of color. Welcome, Gwyneth.
To be here.
Next is Shaloo Garg. She's the Managing Director for Microsoft for Startups, where she works directly with social entrepreneurs to help them scale. Shaloo is a strong believer in leveraging technology for social good, particularly around increasing opportunities for female founders. She's also the global lead for the Microsoft Social Entrepreneurship Program, so I can't think of a better fit for today's conversation. Hi, Shaloo.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Really excited.
Likewise. And, let me start with, we're living in strange times and there are very few silver linings. But one of them I find is that there is this heightened empathy. When I first came to the US, I found it really strange that how are you wasn't really a question. It was more of a formality, something that you say in passing. And I feel like these days we're really asking each other, how are you? And we are listening with curiosity. So I want to start this conversation by asking, Gwyneth, how are you?
Well, first of all, thank you for asking, because I do think times are different right now. And I think the question probably previously was a bit more of, how is the weather and how is your day? And today that question means so much more. And so I am well. The team is doing very well. It has been certainly a trying and challenging time. Our work has never been busier. The need has never been greater. And so I think there are moments where we all have to take a minute and just breathe, because it can get fairly overwhelming pretty quickly. But I do feel like there is this moment of hope, and that we can all come together. And it's these moments like this that we're sharing right now that continue to drive me in these times. So thank you for asking.
Thank you, Gwyneth. Thank you. And Shaloo, tell us how you're doing.
Yes, so before I get to how I am doing, firstly, I wanted to thank MIT Solve and the awesome team that you guys are just awesome. I still remember going back like 4 to 5 years, wanting to work with you. Couldn't be more humbled and, just gratified sharing the stage with you, Hala. You're awesome. And really excited to team up with you, Gwyneth. Looking forward to this conversation today. So how am I? It's a tough question. As Gwyneth was saying early on, it was about, hey, how's it going? Like it was more of a slang. Hey, is everything okay? Like, how's the weather? Now, how are you really carries a lot of weight. And I got to say with when COVID sort of kicked off in the US, it was overwhelming. It was very stressful, trying to figure out what's going on at work and then with the kids at home, trying to balance. I'm not used to having kids at home, when I'm on call. So there was a lot of management, but I think coming out of this, and hopefully we'll come out of this sooner rather than later, I just feel we'll be better human beings in the sense we'll connect with each other much more with respect, right? And that's the learning that I have. Not that I was disrespectful earlier, but it's all about understanding, what's going on on the other side. For example, Hala, you and I were catching up a few weeks ago, and your son was in the background, right? And you were like, I'm sorry. I'm like, don't apologize. Like, that's the new normal. It's okay for a baby to cry in the background, and that's okay. That's our life. So yes, hanging in there and, hoping to come out of this much more stronger. All of us, in fact.
Right. Yeah, there is an integration of the personal and the professional, all of it together in the community, and hopefully that's indeed for the better. Thank you for this, just for addressing this question in such a vulnerable and real way, both of you. And okay, so let's dive into the content. Gwyneth, you operate within the corporate responsibility arm of this massive corporation. Tell us about what that means to be operating from where you stand, and also if you can tell us about how the COVID-19 pandemic and the racial justice movement in the US following the murder of George Floyd have transformed that work.
Great question. So it is quite a big company. So people think of Comcast and they think of their internet provider. They think of NBC and they think of television stations, and then there's Universal and the theme parks and the movie studios. And we are all of those things. So as a company, the breadth of the organization is really quite extraordinary and unique. And we've recently welcomed the Sky Media team from Europe. And so quite a big family of companies coming together. And so from a corporate social responsibility perspective, it is really fascinating to think about how you can bring together all the vast resources that each of these unique brands bring to the table. And we sit really perfectly at this intersection of media and technology, which is a pretty cool place to be at the moment. But it's not without its challenges. So I think, when COVID-19 hit, everybody was forced to go online. Everybody needed their internet provider more than ever before. And so the demand and the need to get access, the awareness, I think, of those that don't have access became very much real to people that hadn't otherwise thought about those things. And I think it exposed a lot of the gaps and the cracks of our society, quite frankly. And so we had been working very quickly to try to address some of those gaps just from a pure connectivity perspective. We launched kind of a revised version of our Internet Essentials offering, making internet free for low-income families across the US, across our footprint. We've been partnering with school districts. We've been trying to get technology and equipment into the hands of people in need. And so all of that was going on. And then the murder took place, and all of the series of protests and riots and everything that came from that, which exposed even more challenges and cracks, I think, in our society. And so as a company, it was really important to us to think about how do we respond to this in an authentic way. So what is authentic to our brand? What can we contribute to create meaningful change? And so we rolled out a $100 million commitment over the course of the next 3 years that is all around social justice, digital equity, small business opportunity, and entrepreneurship. How do we think about emerging from this crisis, and how do we add a more intentional racial lens to the work that we do? We have had a long-standing commitment to diversity, but I think this moment in time has elevated so many things for so many people, and it's brought together the various different brands to this one collective effort. So it's above and beyond everything that we're already doing, but bringing together everything kind of in symphony to think about how collectively can we really make some change. So it's been a fascinating time. It's been a busy time, and excited to dig in more with you.
Well, thank you, Gwyneth, for this very interesting overview. I mean, indeed, when internet is what stands in the way of not entertainment anymore, but really work and study, the responsibility is a completely different ballgame. So it's really great to hear about how you've stood up to the challenge and are standing up every day. And I love this concept of what is authentic philanthropy for our brand, and it does look different from corporation to corporation. Shaloo, you're part also of tech philanthropy, right? I mean, tech philanthropy is the newest comer on the scene of corporate philanthropy. These are companies that have become rich by taking risk and by operating in a way that is different than maybe bigger, usual players. Do you see that translate into your approach to your work? Tell us about what you do and how it fits into this picture.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, the spectrum of philanthropies has been around for decades, right? And the definition has changed with time and with industries, and of course, the circumstances that are all around us. Just speaking in the context of my role at Microsoft, I lead the Global Social Entrepreneurship Program, and I'm going to give you a very simple example, right? How I have personally leveraged the philanthropies organization within my company. So I joined the company last year, social impact has been a passion area of mine for many years. Hala, you and I have had very intense conversations around that. And to me, it was about, Microsoft is over $1 trillion company, and we are very rich in technology. We are very rich in infrastructure. We're very rich in resources. We've got some amazing resources. We're very rich in our corporate philosophy and philanthropy, right? And what I wanted to do was bring all this goodness together and pull together a program and offering for social entrepreneurs. And so I'll just cut the long answer short. One of the things that I was very adamant on for many months, and I'm grateful that I didn't get fired, was, look, if you're going to market, right, let's give the market what they really need. It's not about, I'm Microsoft and, I need to do what I think is right. The biggest gap, for example, that social entrepreneurs have is, of course, access to capital, but also grants, technology, access to community, right? And that's where I got my partners in philanthropies organization involved. And I said, hey guys, look, you have grants, you give out grants anyway to nonprofits in the market. Come partner with me. Let's build something awesome, right? Let's do something that's beneficial to both the industry and the community of social entrepreneurs. And, let's make things happen. And so back to Gwyneth's point, philanthropies is an organization where it's not just about nonprofits. That's another myth that I want to debunk there. Oftentimes when people say philanthropies, it's like, oh gosh, it's nonprofits. But guess what? Our philanthropies organization is also giving grants to for-profits, right? And so it's a fundamental element in any organization, and it's only getting better, especially in the given times today. The way we leverage, the way we look up to philanthropies is huge. And my best partners in this program is actually philanthropies organization.
Well, you covered a lot of ground there, Shaloo. Thank you for this. And, just this idea of leveraging philanthropy, not just to support nonprofits, but also for-profits. And we were just talking about how this crisis has just changed the way we do things. I mean, there is the well-known saying that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste, by Nobel Prize winning economist Paul Romer. And there are numerous examples of large corporations achieving extraordinary results during the pandemic and working with startups to do so. I often think back to the conversation Mary Barra had at Solve at MIT. She's the chairwoman and CEO of General Motors, and she told us in May about the story of GM and Ventec coming together to produce ventilators within a month. And they now have a saying within GM, doing things at ventilator speed. So I want to ask this question. It's actually from Mike Gradinetti. What is the best example of how you have used this crisis in your organization to collapse silos, accelerate innovation, and achieve outcomes? And maybe Gwyneth, since you sit at the center of so many, big organizations within a big organization, I want to start with you. Tell us about how you've done that and to achieve things that were maybe previously unimaginable or in timeframes that were unimaginable.
Question and one we certainly don't have a perfect answer to, but are certainly working through it. I think when COVID hit, there was the immediate needs of crisis, and all silos were kind of out the door. It was we needed to respond to what was happening on the ground, what was urgent and pressing, and we needed to get money out the door as quickly as possible. And we did so without hesitation. We wanted to make sure all of our partners were whole, that they were okay, that we weren't forcing them to use the funds for programming that they just couldn't possibly deliver given the current environment. And so it was really important for us to get that message out quickly and to have that immediate response. And I think typically a company of our size and structure, that process would have been a bit lengthier and more challenging. And just given the nuances of where we are today, we expedited that and money was at the door within a matter of a week or two. It was pretty extraordinary. I'll say with our current social justice commitment, it has been really incredible to see. I'm not just my peers across the different, brands and companies, but our executive, very top of the house is very much invested in this. We have brought together leaders from all of the business units. We are meeting on regular basis. So, it used to be the case that we have a lot of these silos and we operate, and now we're very much building an umbrella and how can we tell a more collective story so that when we want to achieve impact, it's not just about the philanthropic dollars, but it's about the content that we can create, the reach, the technology, the talent. We have a really rich group of employees across all of the businesses that are just desperate to be engaged and to participate. And so really mobilizing all of that. And I think we have a term, we call it a symphony effort within the company, and it has truly been that. And I'm excited about the fact that we made a 3-year commitment, and I know it'll exceed beyond that, but it'll just encourage us to continue to keep those silos at bay, I think, for the foreseeable future.
That's really interesting. It's like, yes, it's taking that, the passion and the speed and making sure that it's enduring after this crisis. Thanks for this. And Shaloo, by the way, I'm glad you didn't get fired because we work on a lot of things together that are really, really make me very excited. Tell us about, I would love to hear, what role corporate philanthropy you see play in building a pipeline of social entrepreneurs, how your organization support these startups. And I'm sure there's, space for there to talk about the work that we do together as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I just want to add one point to what Gwyneth said, which is top of the house, leadership just sort of coming together. The barriers come down. It's flat, right? Just like the world is flat. Organizations are flat. And similarly at Microsoft, that was the approach we did. The timing was interesting. We had just launched Global Social Entrepreneurship Program, actually in Feb 2020, and we were hit by COVID in March 2020. We had these grand, ambitious plans, right? We're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to Germany, and everything just fell flat. And there was panic. I'm not going to say, gosh, we had it together. I will never say that, right? Of course, there was panic because there was investment of dollars, resources, partnerships. And we were like, what are we going to do? And to Gwyneth's point, everything just became flat, right? So it wasn't me leading the program. It was me just rolling up my sleeve and saying, guys, let's just get to the ground. Let's see how we can fix things. So that's the beauty of being in a large organization as well. Sometimes they are siloed, but in the times of crisis, things do come together. So back to your question, role of corporate philanthropies. Look, I have been a big fan of philanthropies forever. Hala, we have worked together, on nonprofit work and just giving back through United Nations as well, right? And I fundamentally believe that philanthropies is sort of the center stone of how we operate in the market. It's not just about philanthropy sitting there for CSR initiatives or nonprofits. They actually carry the voiceover in any organization, right? And so, just to give you, putting this in the context of Microsoft, our corporate philosophy is using technology for good. You can hear Satya Nadella talk about it. You can hear Brad Smith talk about it. Like, that's been the narrative forever. It's not right now, because we are a tech company and we want to use tech for good. Of course, we sell to multi-million-dollar companies. We have great revenue coming in. But at the end of the day, using technology as an enabler is awesome. And that's one of the reasons why I took the job at Microsoft, because I fundamentally believe that technology is the strongest catalyst for change around the world. In terms of COVID, coming back to philanthropies, I just feel that looking back in retrospect, when I started the partnership with my philanthropies organization, it was about grants. It was transactional. It was more like, hey guys, I'll get you really good startups. You give me grants because I want to see these social entrepreneurs be successful. They're hungry for it. We need to do more. What are we doing? We're not doing enough. Let's do more, right? And so that was more very transactional. But during COVID, I have seen my partners just absolutely amazingly collaborate where they are bringing startups to me, in terms of, and that's not even their job. Like they fundamentally play in the grant space. I see emails from them saying, hey, have you talked to so-and-so startup? And, they're doing some really cool stuff around COVID. I find that absolutely amazing. The other thing I do want to add is the role of partners, and like MIT Solve. And I'm not putting a shameless plug here. Nobody bribe me, just for the context. But it's been absolutely amazing partnering with MIT Solve, right? Alex Samuel, Hala yourself, Bruna Braga. I mean, there's just an army of folks who I work with, and they get it. When I go to Hala or Alex or Bruna and I say, look guys, I'm looking for B2B startups focused, let's say, on health tech, they understand the nomenclature that we use. And it's very important because inadvertently what they're doing is helping us get the right startups even for our partners. So I do want to call that partnerships are not just about internally, drawing the best, but it's also about ecosystem partners, because eventually, all the forces driving in the market is what drives success.
Well, thank you for the plug. It is indeed. I mean, I think you're highlighting something really important, which is, finding the right partner who's going to do the translation for you, or be one of the partners that does the translation, because it is a pretty complex operation between, these large corporations and small and nimble startups. I think, Shaloo, you speak quite a bit about that, about what startups and social entrepreneurs particularly bring to corporations. Do you have a few examples of that symbiotic relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, I can go on and on. So let me give you an example of a female founder who I'm a big fan of. She lives in South Africa. And what she does, that's the beauty, that's the power of social impact, right? And so what she's doing is she's building a solution for data scientists for her community. And basically, it's a very simple AI algorithm-led solution. And she's running it on Azure, which is a Microsoft Cloud platform. And she's driving a community of 14,000 data scientists in her community. Now, if you put that model in the US, you'll say, like, what's the big deal, right? It's just skills and employability. Like, that market was like 10 years ago. But look at the power that she has in that market. She's a celebrity. People just think super highly of her. I'm one of her biggest cheerleaders because she had a very difficult childhood and she came out of that stronger. And she said, I was not allowed to study well. I want to make sure I set up my community well, right? And that's where, where we work very closely with social entrepreneurs. We are, of course, she's leveraging our technology. I have queued her up for grants. We're having conversations of how we connect skills and employability, which is a centerpiece of our initiative or our corporate direction, into our customers, right? So there are a lot of customers who who focus on skills and employability and the likes. There are a lot of work streams around social entrepreneurship. But that's the conversation we want to have, is connect these entrepreneurs into these large customers, which in other words is about fast-paced technology, which, the industry term is digital transformation, corporate innovation. There are a lot of terminologies there. So that's one example, and I can go on, but I want to be respectful of time here.
Well, thank you. And I know that we'll have time in Q&A also to go back to some of this. Let me ask you, Gwyneth, what would be, you're building on what Shaloo's just told us, what would be a piece of advice that you would have for large corporations that want to work more with social entrepreneurs based on your experience?
So it's, I think, again, making that kind of intentional connections within the business. So one of the things that's been really interesting for us is, we run 3 accelerators. We run the Farm, Sports Tech, and Lift Labs. And so probably people don't realize that that's even a thing within our organization. So there's 3 avenues, but we also have a really intentional focus. And I work very closely. I know Shaloo said this earlier, how she was partnering with her folks in philanthropy around, hey, I want to get these grants. And so now it's me knocking on the doors of our accelerator saying, hey, we need to get a better pipeline. We need to think about how do we, create a broader picture here. So we have, young people that are thinking about entrepreneurship and have the skills and training that they need to be able to get into one of the accelerators that then get ultimately is invested in by Comcast Ventures, et cetera. So I think companies, thinking about the intentionality of it is really important. And what are some of the business opportunities? So within some of the accelerators, we'll have very specific things that will be hopefully business opportunities for our company as well. And so trying to tie in those synergies. But yeah, it is quite complex within the big companies.
So, and I know that Shaloo, you speak often of, how startups are faster and cheaper and more agile at innovating, and they can help corporations solve their business problems. So that very much echoes what Gwyneth, you're saying. And I think it answers a question that we're getting from Mitchell around, advice for corporations that are looking to scale similar initiatives to that. So maybe one other way to ask it is, what makes it this happy marriage between a social entrepreneur and a corporation? I don't know if you would like to add anything, Gwyneth or Shaloo.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So a happy marriage is what I call a win-win. And if I had a whiteboard, I would draw a triangle for you, right? And there is no third person here, just for the context, all right? So a triangle, and I usually put startup at the top, right? Because we are all here to help entrepreneurs be successful. That's what I look at my job as, Yes, I work for a big company. Yes, my job is to bring in P&L, but my job is fundamentally to help a social entrepreneur be successful. So I'll put startup at the top. I'll put customer here, which is a large enterprise customer. And then I'll put Microsoft here, right? And the way this triangle works is both the feeders, which is customer and Microsoft, work to help these social entrepreneurs be successful. And the only way that can work is if there is an opportunity with an enterprise customer. So I'll give you a very simple example. A large customer, I'm working with a customer in Europe right now who has this huge sustainability initiative, and they're struggling with scaling that. And they're like, we need some technology chops within our organization to help scale that. And I'm bringing in a couple of social entrepreneurs from our portfolio to have this conversation with this customer. So inadvertently, what we are doing is we are helping startups get a seat at the table with a large customer who, in fact, are helping solve a customer's business problem, right? We are not creating a revenue opportunity, or we're not creating a new opportunity. All we are doing is we're just leveraging startups who are faster, agile, and cheaper, much cheaper than $1 million investment that they would make, and helping solve that problem. Now, if both the startup and the customer are happy, then we are happy as well, because ultimately, both are our customers, whether it's a startup or an enterprise customer. So, and it's very, I wouldn't call it a very simple process. It's complex. It takes deep understanding of customers' business, startups' business, matchmaking, the personalities, the technology agenda. Where is the company headed in the next 1 to 3 years? Does the startup have the chops to sustain the demand of an enterprise customer? What does a team look like? Like, I can go on and on. It's not an easy matchmaking. There is a lot of strategic, thought process that goes into it, which eventually leads to success.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shaloo, for this marriage counseling. Now, I can't believe we're already there, but we're going to switch to our Q&A portion of this conversation, which allows me then to bring Chance onto the screen again. And Chance, I think you'll be very pleased to hear there are a lot of questions for you that are also around that Jenny has been answering in the chat around how do we donate to your work and how do we work with you, which is fantastic. My question is more forward-looking about your projects and future plans that you're most excited about for the work that you're doing in Thunder Valley.
Yeah, so at Thunder Valley, we got 34-acre development on the reservation, providing a lot of home ownership opportunities. What I'm most excited about is more recently, we got some community feedback on this playground project that we want to build on the site there for the children, and it's really based around the Black Hills and the creation story of our Lakota people. It has the sacred sites in the playground with different equipment that kind of replicate some of those sacred sites. So I think that project there is really exciting for me. And then also just seeing the whole development come to realization through, we have big plans, a school, support for individuals struggling with addiction, that type of thing. So we're really trying to make this community all inclusive and really for everyone. So I'm really excited to see that built out, and I feel like we're just at the beginning stages of the project. And yeah, that's what I'm really excited about moving forward.
Thank you, Chance. It seems like there's a continuum of services that you already provide, and there are, already you're continuing to fill any hole that may be there for your community. I love the idea of the playground. It's where I spend most of my free time. So, so I'm going. I think the Q&A portion will just be free flowing, and we'll just ask a few questions as they come. I have a few questions from Mike Redinati actually around innovation and how you capture the sense of purpose and urgency that has been created in this crisis, and kind of bottle it up and keep it for when you return to normal. And so I wonder if you have enduring lessons of innovating under adversity that you can share with our listeners. And maybe I'll start with you, Gwyneth.
Yeah, I don't know if I've got enduring lessons just yet. Maybe in a year from now, I'll have some more to share. But I think, I do think that this moment in time has brought together so many urgent needs, and like I said earlier, exposed cracks that have been there for many, many years. And so I think there is no other alternative except for to continue forward. We have to continue to work together. The silos need to stay, broken down. I think by having some of these multi-year, longer-term commitments, it is holding us all accountable to continue to do the work and to dig in, to have a level of transparency, authenticity in everything that we're doing. And so I think I'm hopeful that that work will continue through the course of the commitment, and then it will become just everyday work, right? So the hope then is that all of the work that we're doing, the issues that have been elevated, become just a fabric in all of our day-to-day operations. So hopefully that will be the enduring lesson, but time will tell.
Thank you. There are quite a few questions actually around how to make decisions for which project to support. And we haven't asked about, which metrics can aid decisions about what projects can be, supported. Mitchell is asking about, Oshiti from Sudan is actually asking about how do you prioritize where the support goes. There are a few questions around that as well. So Shaloo, how do you pick?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Before I answer that question, let me just level set. And I think it's a phrase by somebody, I'm quoting somebody and I'm forgetting who I'm quoting. So the only constant in our life is change, right? I mean, I need to look up who said this. Pre-COVID world, right? Our matrix, our innovation strategy, which Gwyneth touched on, our thought process on innovation, we thought we were changing, but we weren't. Let's face it, we were in status quo mode. The healthy industries were getting more healthier. The riskier industries were getting more riskier, right? And we thought we were doing amazing. The market was awesome and employment rates were up. And we thought, great, like this is the best space to be in. When COVID hit us, it actually changed our approach to matrix because that was the real change. Right? That is how we grew. Coming out of it, how many months? 4 or 5 months. I feel that I've professionally grown in the last 4 to 5 months because it's hit me hard, right? I manage a business. My goal is also to help our social entrepreneurs be successful or entrepreneurs in general. And it's not just about me being successful, me and my team. It's about the market as well. And so back to the question on matrix. The way generally in pre-COVID world, I would say, well, let's look at the revenue. Let's look at how the market is doing. But post-COVID, it's all about entrepreneurs. It's all about, because guess what? If the entrepreneurs in the market, or if our customers for that matter, are successful, we're going to be successful. Now, there are different tangents on how we measure success of our entrepreneurs or success of our customers. The other thing that I usually push for is what I call the cultural approach, right? Oftentimes, like, think of it, all of us are stressed. Like, I'm yet to meet somebody who raises a hand and says, I'm so happy. Like, this is the best thing that's happened to me, right? So we're all stressed. And when we get on a call, everyone is either, making breakfast like cereal or saying, hey, I got to go for my doctor's appointment. Like, there is anxiety around us. And so one of the things that I often push for is just calming ourselves, grounding ourselves culturally. It's very important personality trait that we all need to go through. It's not actually, if you perform well, it impacts the business, right? And so it's very important to ground ourselves and sort of identify that cultural, grounding or how we show up. That's the term that I use, which is we're in the group of friends. Yes, I may be your boss, you may be my boss, but let's at the end of the day, really be grounded in how we show up. It's not the end of the world if your laundry is seen in the back. Trust me, it's not, right? And so I think all these things come together and they drive performance. And of course, depending on individual businesses, they may be, different matrix, but I typically identify these two, that it's very important to be aware, to be self-aware as well.
Right. I think I saw some study that it's not so much introversion or extroversion as traits, for example, that determine how well you do on remote work. Really, the single most relevant metric is how your self-regulation ability. And so when we're all so stressed in different ways and at different scales, this seems to be the one thing that helps the most. There are so many questions. I want to get to this one from Aiden. For you, Gwyneth, what steps have your organization taken to realize an anti-racist ethos and racially include people in the way you support communities and social entrepreneurs and partners?
Yeah, that's a great question and a really important one. So I think we as a company have had a longstanding commitment to diversity and inclusion. It has been a core for many, many years. That said, when we made the commitment that we did around following the murder and all the subsequent events, we did so in very much partnership and collaboration with a lot of our employee resource groups. So we engaged our individual employees. We have over 130,000 of them from various different backgrounds. And so we had a lot of conversations and focus groups. We wanted to hear from our people, to hear how these issues were impacting them. We have had a series of listening tours and D&I panels for all of our employees, as well as our employee resource groups, additional support. Our HR team, of course, is kind of doubled down on its commitment to hiring practices, thinking about procurement processes, the whole gamut, to make sure that everything that we do from a business is done so with a lens to equity. And I think from a philanthropic perspective, a lot of what we'll be focused on, particularly with this commitment, will be supporting entrepreneurs of color, supporting organizations that are serving communities of color, looking at our most vulnerable populations to see how we might be able to have the greatest impact, be it in digital equity or entrepreneurship or whatever the topic might be. So it's permeating everything we do at the moment, and I think will continue.
And in many ways, Gwyneth, it sounds like COVID has led to a hyper-local lens for individuals, but also for organizations. I mean, our supply chains are all becoming more local. How has that, impacted the way you think about your work?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting from a local perspective. I mean, so Comcast, in particular, from the internet business, we've got a footprint in pretty much every major city in the United States, with the exception of New York and LA, ironically. But we're pretty much everywhere else, and the needs, to your point, are incredibly local. So when we did kind of an immediate urgent response grants around COVID, it was hyper local. As we look to scale and we think about broader initiatives, I think it's going to be really important to balance that local and national to be able to achieve scale. So what are some of the new initiatives? How can we uncover some new organizations, new partners, and help kind of amplify their work and perhaps look to scale, less about kind of thinking about who are the big top national and then taking them local, but really starting to bubble up some innovation from the ground. So I'd say that's not necessarily a massive shift, but definitely a new lens we'll take.
Thank you, Gwyneth. Chance, I might want to actually come back to you and ask you more about that playground. It sounds like all of your work is coming from that philosophy of community development and bottom-up development. So I would love to hear more about, how you came to think of that project and how. Tell us more about how it's informed by the culture and the community that will be using it.
Yeah, so with the development, we're really working to provide services to all ages, all people who will be using the development there. So really thinking about our young ones, and right now there's not really anything for them to do there at the site. So that was pretty high on our priority list, was to get a playground there, because we recently had a 12-unit apartment complex built, and we see a lot of children out there and families and some of the other playgrounds you see in the area, they're not, really up to par and in good condition. So really seeing that need for a nice park, and then also just wanting to provide that for the children, but really going to the community and different members of the area and really asking them what they wanted out of that playground and what they wanted to incorporate it. And what we heard back was getting the language involved through some different panels on the playground, and then just really getting back to incorporating the culture and some of the things that really mean a lot to us as a people, and really being able to tell a story through that playground with our creation story of the Black Hills and those sacred sites that have always been there for us, and really using that playground as an opportunity to teach those things to the children. So it's a pretty special playground, and I'm really looking forward to having it built. Still fundraising for the entire playground project, so it's broken out in 3 phases right now, and we're just into phase 1 of that.
Thank you, Chance, for sharing this. Between what you said and what Gwyneth said about the, local entrepreneurship, it reminds me of that concept that's been coming over and over again in our conversation about the proximate entrepreneur. The person who is from the community, just knows about the what matters most to that community, and is the really best place to solve for the problems that are in there. So thank you for sharing that. Let me see. I have to tell you, there are questions from everywhere, from Sudan, from Ecuador, from South Africa, it really runs the gamut. It's fantastic to see. I want to do justice to all of these questions that are coming in. Maybe Shaloo, coming back from Greg from Ecuador, is asking, he wants to come back to your comment about rethinking philanthropy to include activities that can achieve self-sustainability with tech as an enabler. It seems like a key for growth and replicability. Can you give us examples of what you're seeing going into that direction?
Yeah, again, there are a lot of examples. One of them I would say is, especially during COVID times, one of the things that we have done deliberately with philanthropy organization is come up with a gamut, or what I call rules of engagement, in how we work with social entrepreneurs and even ecosystem partners for that matter, right? And so using tech for good, what I'm doing is helping these social entrepreneurs, just in the context of conversation, to be successful. Like, let me put it this way. There has never been a better time to be a social entrepreneur as of today. Like, this is the best time, because social impact is literally driving the recovery of the economy. It's very hard to comprehend, but that's the reality. I often say this, that oftentimes social impact startups have been compared with commercial startups who carry big ticket price, right? So for example, in Silicon Valley, Series A typically closes at $30 million for a commercial startup. Social impact startup may carry like $5 to $6 million. And oftentimes we look at the dollar price and we say, you know what, social impact is less important. But now the narrative is changing, because what social impact startup is doing is having a rippling effect on our economy, society, and community. And that's where the philanthropy organization comes in, right? That's where we say, we feel like, I personally feel much more stronger and much more confident to have this conversation versus where I was a year ago, because our world was different. Now our world is different. And so philanthropy, is, again, and of course there are other organizations as well within the company that are equally good players, but the role that corporate philanthropy plays is the center stone of driving the initiatives in the market, which eventually benefits the market. And so I hope that helps. Again, I can go on, but I want to be respectful of time here.
Thank you. And I have to say, I wish we had double the time, but maybe we might be getting into the territory of, last thoughts. So Gwyneth, what do you want to leave the audience thinking about?
I just would have to say, getting back to how I started things, that I think this is a moment of true change, that we should all be hopeful, that we need to all band together. This is going to take everybody coming together to be able to lift us out of the challenges that we are all currently facing. But I'm hopeful. I have seen activity and engagement at the highest levels from friends, colleagues, family members, people that have never been engaged before, that are all of a sudden now present and willing and wanting to have these conversations. So I think the onus is on us to seize this moment and make a real difference.
Thank you, Gwyneth. Chance, what about you? Any final words?
Yeah, so as at Thunder Valley, we're a nonprofit organization. I just invite foundations, philanthropies, and individuals to help support our work financially. We're always looking for funding to fulfill our projects and the work that we do on the Pine Ridge Reservation, and working towards liberation for our people. And just look us up at our website, thundervalley.org. Follow us on our social media. And just thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Chance. And thank you, Gwyneth and Shaloo, for joining me for Solving from Anywhere today. Thank you for our attendees for all of your questions. I know I didn't get to all of them and we could have gone on and on, but this is all the time that we have for today. We've covered so much ground about, what is authentic philanthropy for a corporation, what that fits with its brand and its products and services. We talked about, the changes that organizations are going through in this time, about how top of line is getting flatter to allow for faster timelines and turnaround. We talked about the change in relationship between corporations and the startups that they support, from transactional to relational, faster interactions, more flexible interactions. Really, overall, just a change of metrics about what matters, how we measure success. And I love this, triangle that Shaloo told us about, as the startup, the customer, and the corporation triangle, and how social impact is what's going to drive the recovery of the economy, and that there's no better time to be a social entrepreneur and to be working with corporations because of the rippling effect of the work of social entrepreneurs on the entire economy. And I think Chance was a terrific example of that. So the narrative is changing. I'm so glad you could be with us today to hear about it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're impressed by Chance's work and interested in supporting it, the link is in the chat for those who want to do more and learn more. And for those who want to do more with Solve, we would love to hear from you. We're going to be sharing a survey as well, because we want to hear what you thought of this conversation. And of course, join us back here in 2 weeks for the next Solving from Anywhere, which will be on August 18th. We will be hosting Greg Schell, Managing Director of Bain Double Impact, and it will be moderated by Solve's own Casey Vanderstreek, the principal for Solve Innovation Future, which is Solve's donor-advised fund, and it makes debt and equity investments directly in for-profit solver teams. In the meantime, please take a few moments to fill out our post-event survey, which you can find in the email and in the chat. Would love to hear from you about how we can make the series better. Thank you so much for your time, for listening, for tuning in, for the questions. See you next time, and happy solving.